Lifting paint from your paper is a really great skill that you can have so that your paintings are not completely uniform looking. This helps if you are painting things that are three-dimensional. This helps if you are painting things that have a highlight or light parts and dark parts. This also helps when you're doing things like painting veins, and it's definitely something that takes some practice. Before I demonstrate lifting paint, I want to show you a couple examples of some early paintings that could have benefited from lifting the paint to make the color less uniform. So these two paintings, I'll show you in contrast. Those rose hips, the color was pretty uniform. Here, there's some lights and darks. So if I had some shading and some lights and darks in that first painting, it would have improved it. So this rose, you can see there's lights and darks in these petals, which is not apparent in that other painting. I'm going to demonstrate a couple examples of how to manipulate the paint on the paper. So I'm painting a simple leaf shape, and I'm going to move the paint around. So this second brush here is damp. There's no paint on it, and I can use it to push the paint and lift the paint off of the one side of this leaf. So there's a lighter side and a darker side. And then I can come back and add a little bit more green paint to make the contrast between light and dark even more apparent. So practice this, lifting the paint. I'll give you another example here. Another simple leaf shape with the green paint. And this time I'm going to lift up a vein. So I'll let this green leaf dry a little bit. So the paint has absorbed into the paper. It's still damp. And using a clean, damp brush, I'm pulling the paint off of the paper. It's almost like I'm painting a line, but instead of adding paint, the brush is taking paint away. Here's another leaf shape that I painted with a darker reddish color. And since this color is darker and absorbed slightly more, it's going to take a couple tries. So be patient with this. Just move your brush gently and it'll pull up the color. Let's paint another leaf here. This one in a brighter red. Painting shapes like this, it's also a good practice for controlling the water, the amount of water on your brush and on your paper. So I'm going to come back here and pull up some of the paint again, similar to that first leaf that we painted, using the damp brush and then making sure to remove the extra paint on the paper towel so that you're not just spreading more paint into the lighter area. And I can use that damp brush to push and move the paint. And this gives me a leaf with a light side and a darker side. One thing that has been helpful as I've developed my watercolor skills is trying out some different kinds of brushes. And one brush that's been very helpful to use is a chisel blender or a flat shader, a very narrow one, and I'll show you what I mean. The shader and blender brushes work wonderfully to lift up veins. So here is a damp red leaf shape, and I'm using the tip of the brush sideways to pull up my vein and then wiping the excess paint off and taking the damp brush and just like we did with the pointed round brush, lifting up that fine line. I'm going to also show you that you can lift up color from dry paint. It takes a little bit more effort, but one advantage is that you can get a finer line when the paint is dried. You may have to go over the paint a number of times to pull up a nice clean line, Just be patient and you'll get there. Blender and shader brushes are great for cleaning things up too. Like here, I'm just neatening the edges where I had some overlapping stems. So you work it in the same way you would if you're picking up some dried paint. All of these stems, if there's a little bit of a messiness of where you painted the overlaps, you can come back and lift up some of the paint and clean off those edges. It can also allow you to lighten up the centers of stems or the sides of stems and give them more of a three-dimensional look. I hope you will play with and experiment with some different types of brushes.